We've got a number of Highguard updates to talk about in this video, and somehow everything just looks even worse. Like, they were already looking pretty dang bad, pretty horrible, and but the new information that came out makes them all look even worse, and also looks horrible for Geoff Keighley. So quick rundown, and then we'll get into the specifics. I'll show you everything in more detail. But first of all, the Highguard website's now been down for about 24 hours. There's been no actual official statement from the Highguard account about this, but apparently a random dev on the Discord server has responded to an inquiry about this. So that's the closest thing we have as a official response, and it's an awful response. Funny side note about the website, someone else found that apparently before the website went down, the Discord server link there actually went to a completely different Highguard. It went to a random gaming clan called the Highguard clan. And that's what they had linked on their official website, apparently. And so some people joined and they're like, hey, is this the server for Highguard? And they're like, no, the game? No, we're the Highguard clan. We were here before they were. Why are they linking to our server? And then finally, we've got some internal information revealed about Highguard's funding and how it apparently comes down to Tencent. These guys were apparently being funded by Tencent. This makes them and Geoff Keighley look very shady because all of them were trying to paint this out as a little independent-esque studio that was running away from the evils of AAA. Meanwhile, they were funded by Tencent this whole time. At least that's what the new reports are claiming. And again, we'll take a look at all of this in more detail. So let's get started. So on the actual official Highguard Discord, we had this user Yin saying, what's up with the website? Being updated? And this apparent dev says, not sure on the time frame, but basically needs to be transferred and simplified. Low priority at the moment. Reputational damage already done. Now we just need to focus on delivering updates and content to improve. So yeah, I couldn't believe that. Once again, there's been no actual official statement about the website being down now 24 hours or so. And all we have is this apparent random dev on the Discord server responding to someone. That's all we got from them. And WIldlight previously said it's not about how many players we have, but that the players we do have love the game. And this is how they treat them? I mean, that's a horrible look. Imagine being an existing player of Highguard, one of the few that are left, and you see the official website's down 24 hours, there's no statement at all. It's not a good look. It's not a good show of confidence for the future of the game. And obviously the writing's on the wall, so this thing's in real trouble, but nevertheless, if they truly cared about the players that they do have left, I don't understand how they don't say something more official about this. But I think it actually comes down to ego. This is pure speculation, but the vibe that I get from the Highguard team that's left and not laid off is that they simply didn't make an actual official statement on this on Twitter because they were scared of people making fun of them in the tweet, in the quote tweets and in the responses. And that's ridiculous. Bro, you have existing players left. Are you really you're really putting more weight on random people on Twitter making fun of you than actually informing your players with what's going on? Now, of course, that's just my speculation, but I think when you take a look at how these people have been handling everything, it's a likely explanation for why they've technically been radio silent about this, aside from this one off-the-cuff response on their Discord server. And the part where he says, reputational damage already done, that's crazy too. Again, my point isn't even about whatever circumstances may be for why the website's down right now. My point is about how they haven't made an official statement about this anywhere, and all we have is this, once again, off-the-cuff Discord comment because someone on Discord asked about it. Well, like I said, what about your existing players? Don't you think they're concerned about why the official website's down? Especially with all the other bad news that's been coming out about this game and the mass layoffs that just occurred. Now the official website's down. Y'all have said nothing about it. But hey, reputational damage is already done. Might as well just not say anything. Who cares about the players we have left? And so before the website went down, though, people, as mentioned, also noticed this, for example, this post reading, the Discord invite on the official site links to an Australian gaming guild unrelated to Highguard. And you can see this guild plays games like Nebulous, Fleet Command, Space Engineers, Dune Awakening, Helldivers 2, Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen. And we have a redacted Discord message here, apparently, where one of the people from that guild responds to someone who joined from the Highguard website. And they say, what game are you joining for? We don't play Highguard. We were here first. It's just astonishing. How'd they even mess that up like that? Now, all that said, there is an official Highguard Discord server, apparently, the one we saw the aforementioned alleged dev comment from. So I don't know if people are just trolling around with this Highguard guild thing. I can't actually check to see if it was linked there myself, is what I'm getting at, because the website's down, and or by the time it's up, maybe this is fixed, or maybe it never actually happened. This is just like a troll post or something. I don't know for sure, but just something to mention really quick. Let's move on to the other main part of the video though, which is the Tencent news. Insider Gaming reports Highguard developer was backed by Tencent. As Highguard struggles continue amid collapsing player counts and layoffs at developer WIldlight Entertainment, a new report has shed light on who was funding the game all these years. According to Stefan Totillo of GameFile, Chinese conglomerate Tencent was the, quote, lead financial backer, unquote, of the studio. Specifically, it said that Timmy Group is the main studio backing the game. Up until now, the funders behind the game have been kept quiet. In past interviews, the studio has declined to comment on who was investing in the studio. Totillo adds that neither Tencent nor WIldlight provided a comment on the matter by the time of the publication. Insider Gaming has also reached out for comment, but has not yet received a response. Highguard launched on January 26 to nearly 100,000 concurrent players on Steam. Since then, the game has seen its player base fall to under 2,000 peak concurrents on the platform. It has also received mixed reviews. Now, the other day, I mentioned that Valve was being accused of having too much free speech, essentially, on the Steam forums by activist journalist outlet The Guardian. And The Guardian reached out to Valve for comment about this, to which Valve ignored the journalists. And I said, based Valve, that's a dub. It's a vastly different circumstance compared to what we see here, though, where, there's a very valid reason to be criticizing Highguard about this, and why WIldlight has been radio silent and trying to imply the inverse, really, of the reality of the situation, which is regarding their financial backing here via Tencent. It's vastly different than some nonsense being written up by journos trying to smear Steam amidst a lawsuit, by the way, that they're currently involved with. That seems like a very corrupt one from the UK, where the woman leading the charge on this lawsuit, Vicky Shotbolt, has ties to Ofcom. And all the other stuff that I also mentioned already in my aforementioned coverage from the other day about The Guardian going after Steam. This is a very long-winded way of me essentially saying that I'm not going to call WIldlight based. It's not going to happen. Cycling back to WIldlight, Geoff Keighley, and Tencent, though, let's talk about why this has been so deceptive from all of them. First of all, back on January 31st, we had this information coming out from an interview that WIldlight CEO Dusty Welsh had with Polygon, where they said, WIldlight started with a small team of 5 or 6 people and remained that size for some time before gradually ramping up over the years. It's now about 100 people, around 60 of whom previously worked on Apex Legends and Titanfall. Dusty going on to say, we wanted to create an environment that was special and unique, and not have the burdens that you might get at a big publisher at a big company. Dusty Welsh had a separate interview with PC Gamer, which GameSpot would report on January 27th, and we'll take a look at this section where they say, Welch also talked about WIldlight's relationship with Keighley, saying he is a, quote, friend of the studio, unquote, and played the game prior to launch. He loved it, Welsh said. So when Geoff said, look, I'd love to do something different and put an indie studio and a free-to-play game up here and put it in the show, I mean as an indie who was unknown by choice, who wouldn't jump at the chance to do that? Here's the biggest platform in gaming, right? Welsh said. So yeah, from WIldlight themselves to Geoff Keighley himself, there's been this attempt to try to paint WIldlight as similar to your favorite indie studio. And I don't think this is coincidence. For years now, we've seen indie games continuing to win. Now, sometimes you see this really weird thing where the modern audience types love defending AAA like Veilguard Slop and Ubislop. And they get really mad when people talk about the indie scene winning, and they try to counter that by saying something like, actually, most of the indie games on Steam fail. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of indie games on Steam that don't take off. Some of those devs are just doing it for fun, though, or it's like a first project they're doing for experience. Not all of them are actually intended to be like a smash hit. Nevertheless, we're not talking about all those anyways. We're talking about how every year there's consistently indie games at the forefront of gaming news, massively outperforming AAA games. And that's based. That's a good thing. The AAA industry has become far too corrupt. However, the AAA industry and the corpos, they don't like that. They don't like losing to indie games, of course. And so this attempt from WIldlight, which was really like a 100-person AA studio that came from AAA and brought over essentially all of the same practices of AAA, trying to paint themselves out as this great different thing. And then Geoff also being like, yeah, they're totally an indie studio. It really seems like they are trying to appeal to the growing section of gamers that are walking away from AAA and showing a greater and growing appreciation for indie studios. And this was them trying to capitalize on that favor and misappropriately apply the indie term onto WIldlight. Now, on top of them being more of a AA studio than something like your favorite little indie studio, we also now know that they've been getting funding from Tencent, apparently. So, I mean, that's just crazy. They really said they don't want to have to deal with like being constrained by big publishers like they would in AAA, but here they are signing contracts with Tencent. Like, okay, man. This would cause people to once again speculate if Geoff was actually paid to put Highguard in the spot that he did at the Game Awards 2025. Now, if I recall, Geoff declined this and even laughed about those sort of claims against him. But now that's being brought up again because on the GameAwards.com About section, they have what they call the advisory board. And at the very bottom left of their advisory board, you can see they have Stephen Ma of Tencent there. Though to be fair, you can also see a lot of very big names in the gaming industry and major gaming corporations listed there as well. So maybe there's nothing to this, or maybe Geoff wasn't lying about not getting paid by WIldlight, but an omission of sorts in that he might have been paid by Tencent, but hey, no one asked about that, so he didn't say anything about that. But of course, that's all just speculation. Who knows? Who knows for sure? He very well may have not been paid by Tencent or WIldlight. Maybe he really just thought, as he said, Highguard was a good game that he liked and he wanted to put it there. Or maybe he was hoping this would win a little favor with Tencent if he put it there. And it did well. Maybe that would incentivize Tencent to, I don't know, pay it forward his direction another way somehow, or the Game Awards another way somehow. Who knows for sure? Again, this last part's just pure speculation and some of the stuff people are bringing up, so I figured I'd mention it at the end. This last part aside, though, it's already a shady look how Geoff and WIldlight tried to paint themselves out as, once again, this like little indie studio or whatever. Just a really bad look. And people have said, like, why would they lie about this? Why were they so shady about this? And I think it goes back to what I said about how the indie scene's been winning. And they tried to use this as some sort of way to start, what's the word, co-opting the indie scene in a way. I think there's probably better phrasing I could use, but it's eluding me right now, and we're kind of near the end of the video anyways, so I'll wrap this up. That's the latest. Let me know what you think about all this. Hope you enjoyed the coverage. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.